What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram at talklouder_podcast. And of course, our website, talklouderpodcast.com, where you'll find links to our merch and all of our previous episodes. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, and I'm having a good day, man.
I've had a couple of great days.
I've had a couple of great days too. I saw you at Anthrax last night in San Antonio. Anthrax, Exodus, and Black Label Society. That was
unbelievable, Bill. Can we talk about that, Bill? Oh my God, there's not a better show. I can't right now. I'm so clouded with awesomeness from that billing. I can't imagine a show that's going to be better than that.
It was really great. I mean, all three bands delivered. Anthrax, I thought, played everything you want to hear from Anthrax. They were high energy, as they always are. Loved the Black Label set, loved the Exodus set, and it was
apparently I was name checked and I missed it.
You were name checked. Me and my son Dash looked at each other like, "What did he just say?"
I didn't hear shit.
Scott Ian was on the mic, and he said in between songs, he says, "I'm trying to think of the last time that Anthrax was in Texas."
Was it before Only?
It was before Only.
Right before Only, because I heard like Scott on the mic, rah, 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 but I'm over on the side and they have in-ears and I can't understand.
He was on the mic a few times last night, but he said he was talking in between songs and he says, "I'm trying to remember the first time Anthrax was in Texas." And he said, "I'll probably get this wrong, but Jason McMaster can correct me. I want to say it was 1986 at a place called Cardi's with a band called Pantera opening for us." And when he said your name on the mic, me and my son looked at each other and went, "What? Did you hear that?"
That was 86. Watchtower and Hellstar, I believe it was, opened the show in Austin at the Ritz Theater. I have the flyer. And I would imagine, I don't know, there was a Cardi's in Houston at the time. Mm-hmm. There was a Cardi's here. I don't know there being a Cardi's in the DFW Arlington area.
I think he mentioned Houston.
Okay, well, Houston, if Pantera opened for them at Cardi's, that would have been in Houston. But I feel like it coulda, shoulda, woulda been. Only slight confusion on the map, that it would have been maybe a place called I'm going to get this wrong, Savvy's, which kind of after a few Budweisers it sounds like Cardi's. Savvy's, Savvys, Savvy's in Fort Worth, and that's where I feel like, listeners, correct me, use your Google powers and find the first tour of Anthrax in 86,
Texas,
spreading the disease tour, and look at the Texas dates. And
so did Scott know you were in the house last night?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. Because I know you were hanging out with the Black Label Society guys.
Well, I was there with Bobby Landgraf pretty much all day. He was at my house at noon. I'm like, fuck, what time? We're going to be literally at the venue for like 9 hours.
Right.
And he was like, yeah. He was like, yeah. So what?
I figured you would have crossed paths at some point, because for Scott to name check you in San Antonio, I thought he must know you're here.
I ran into everybody doing their daily duties. It was breakfast for them. So, I mean, Zach's eating eggs, and Charlie just got in from the airport because he went home for one day. And I was seeing John. Frank was in there. Frank and Bobby had never met, but Frank is an old friend of Rex, and Bobby is Rex's bass tech. So all of the Pantera company and talk, because of the Zach and the Charlie connection, was kind of there. And Bobby is this sort of go between the two of them, because he works. They're kind of his bosses. In a way, roundabout, right?
Well, it was a great show, and hearing your name on the mic was a surprise. So,
well, I mean, I don't need to hear my name on the mic, but when you told me that, I was like, "What? What the fuck? Why would if it would have to do with a history lesson about Anthrax or a heavy metal band, he might be right that I can correct him. But I've already said my piece. I think I'm going to guess, because I don't fucking really know, Savvy's in Fort Worth, as opposed to the possibility, and it very well could be, like I'm saying, Cardi's in Houston. But it would have been 86 Spreading the Disease tour.
I'm sure our listeners or viewers will comment.
Look it up.
Yeah,
there's probably a website that has every tour date for every band in the world, but I don't spend my life online really. So
right. Well, someone let us know. Anyway, the other reason I'm having a great day is not only the afterglow of the Anthrax Black Label Society Exodus gig, but today we are joined on the podcast by Tracii Guns, guitarist for LA Guns. And one of my favorites. We've been doing this podcast for 2 years. I've been trying to get him on the show every day for those past 2 years, and we finally got him today.
Yeah, he's a badass. I should probably mention that the first like real tour that I ever did where I'm a support act was on LA Guns Cocked and Loaded with Dangerous Toys and Tora.
Yeah. And we didn't even get to that. I had that on my list of things. It was one of those conversations where we just started rolling and you know, we're never really on script, so to speak.
Oh, that sucks.
But I do try to have a roadmap so I can, you know, kind of cover as much as we can. But sometimes it just starts and the conversation's so great, you just kind of let everything go out the window. You know, but I did want to ask about that tour, get your input from. I feel like we learned a lot.
I feel like, in my opinion, when people say, you know, let's say I'm being interviewed by someone and they say, have you ever been treated like shit as an opening band on tour? And I have to rack my brain and go, you know, not really. I mean, you get screwed on stage space sometimes, and I've had to sing, you know, over standing next to Scott or something. Yeah. But, you know, that's kind of how that goes. It's like you're a guest. And you know, they're not going to like set up and sound check and get everything right and then tear it all down just to make room for you.
Right.
Counterproductive.
Yeah, the clock is ticking.
Productive production. People bought tickets and spent money to come see this show. So that's part of the show. So if you're a guest, you use what's left over, and the idea is go out and kill so people remember you, even though you're not the headliner. And I learned that on that very first tour with LA Guns, and we were treated great. It was great, and it's good to be able to call Tracii a friend after, you know, I don't know, 40 years.
Yeah, and it
hadn't been 40 years. Okay, 37.
And it's good to call 30. Him. It's good to call him a guest finally on the Talk Louder podcast. We did learn a lot, covered a lot of ground. He's here today to talk about the new LA Guns record. It's coming out April 14th. It's called Black Diamonds.
This record is crazy.
It is the fourth studio album since Tracii and Phil reunited in 2017. If you stop and think about that, it's February right now of 2023. So in less than 6 years, they've put out 4 studio albums. There was also a live album and an EP, but 4 studio albums. They're more prolific than ever. And that comes out April 14th, hopefully a tour to follow.
Well, the single is out. There'll be another single out by the time this airs.
Yeah. And there should be some videos, probably maybe out already. I know there's a lyric video for You Betray, which is the first single off the album. That's out right now.
That song is fucking nuts.
Yeah. And I know that they recorded a couple other videos. Ace Von Johnson was a guest on this show recently, and he told us they did one for Shattered Glass, and I think the title track of the album. But regardless, look for the next wave of LA Guns music and video coming your way. Anyway, Tracii Guns with us finally on the Talk Louder podcast.
So really quick, how I know Jason, pull up to our first LA Guns gig in Austin, and Jason was in this band called Watchtower, and he comes up to me. And he's like, hey, man, I'm this guy, Jason. I'm in this band, Watchtower. You know, we kind of sound like Rush. I'm like, whoa, and he plays me this cassette, like, and been friends ever since. That was so long ago, like 30 years ago.
Wow.
What gig would that have, where was that at?
You weren't playing. You were just hanging. It was at the back room.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's another thing I'll never forget. And that was a good thing, though.
Yeah. But what year would that have been?
So there's some bad things he'll never forget too, apparently.
So I guess that was our first show of our first tour, 88.
Yeah, I was already in the Toys. I was moonlighting. I was in 88. I was technically, because in, I mean, I'm not doubting you. That very well could have happened. If it was 88 though, it would have had to have been like around spring, had to have been fairly early in the year.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause our album came out in January.
Oh, okay.
And of 88, I believe.
I was definitely already working with the Toys because we had been covering.
I think you were. You told me you had a new band.
We had been covering Sex Action. So
nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Toys.
You know how weird it is to play Sex Action at 57 years old to women that are, in their mid 40s.
This guy sings Sportin' a Woody.
Sportin' a Woody, bro. Yeah, I'm fucking 60 and I'm talking about a dick. Yeah.
Hey, my band is named after my dick. So,
Right. Well.
Hey, but Sportin' a Woody really needs to be in a Viagra commercial.
There you go. There
Come
you
on,
go.
that'll set you up for life.
Can you be my marketing manager?
Sure. By the way, hi, David.
Hey, how are you, Tracii? I'm glad you could be here today. Thanks so much for doing this. We've been doing this podcast for 2 years, and I've wanted you on the show since day one. So thank you so much for joining us today. I needed you guys to warm up. 2 years is a good amount of time. Yeah, well, we might not have any technical difficulties today, and and I think we've got some chemistry after 2 years. So, hopefully this will be painless for you. Speaking of the back room, real quick, you are also one of the last national acts to play that venue before it shut down, because I saw you there.
Yeah,
and then that week, I think it was, the venue shut down after 30 some years. So
yeah, I think we might have been the last band.
You may have been. Yeah. The last national act, quite possibly. You're definitely one of the last, if not the last. And I remember being there, and there's a photo of me and you together right over that LA Guns album in my backdrop. You can't really see it because of my camera angle.
I think they tried to get the Toys on that bill with the Guns.
I think so too. I remember.
We were unavailable. So
yeah.
You didn't miss much. It was kind of sad. It was packed, but people were kind of like not sure what the hell was going on. Remember, David? It was kind of a weird day.
Yeah, because I think the back room at that point, the word was already out that the club was kind of closing, so attendance was kind of down in general. It was kind of in decline already.
It was weird.
But I remember it because I was excited to see you, and I took a poster off the wall and had you sign it for me, and so. Yeah, it was a good day for me.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
Any day I get to play guitar is a good day. Don't get me wrong.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
God damn. Amen to that. Yeah. If any day you wake up and like smell rock and roll, it's going to be a good day.
Yeah. Today I woke up and smelled myself. It wasn't that great.
Well, the day is young. Hopefully that'll change.
Yeah.
Your smell equals rock and roll in somebody's life. So
that's true.
Are you in LA or Denmark?
I'm in LA right now.
Okay. Do you still fly back and forth, or are you still kind of spending time in each place, or I can't keep up with you?
Yeah, it's pretty random. Yeah, I fly back and forth all the time. I'm used to it. That's the good part, is I'm used to it. It's about a 10.5 hour flight average there and back.
Yeah.
But I've done it so many times now that I have my system and my, what do you call that? My routine. So it's fairly simple and it's worth it. I mean, my pad in Denmark is amazing. The city I live in is amazing. And the people, I have a lot of friends there. It's really good.
Awesome. Nice. Let's talk about your album. That's why we woke you up today. You've got a new album coming out, LA Guns, Black Diamonds, comes out April 14th. Man, you guys have been so prolific lately. 4 studio albums in the past, let me do the math, 6 years?
Yeah.
Is that right? So 4 studio.
So.
Yeah. 4 studio albums, I know, since 2017. So it's now 2023. Right. Call it 6 years, I guess.
Yeah.
And I can't keep up.
Yeah, I know.
Just so you know, it's a lot of work, Tracii. I don't know how you guys do it.
Well, that, and I did Sunbomb record, and I did this Jack Russell record, and I just finished a record with Todd Kerns. I actually wrote and recorded the Todd Kerns record exactly mixed in with the LA Guns record. So I wrote 22 songs in one. It's crazy shit.
Wow.
I just think that, the one thing I never really had truly was this kind of freedom, that Frontiers just, they don't, they care, but nobody says anything. I just get to write the stuff, get it recorded. And since it's all home recording now, there's no pressure, and that's all I can do is play guitar. So I'm basically just recording my life, right? Kind of nonstop recording and writing. And we have a really good team. This guy, Mitch Davis, writes all the lyrics in New York, and he actually brings Phil out there, and they finish the lyrics and record the vocals out there. Adam Hamilton plays the drums, and he records the drums at his studio. So we really have a system where I can write something to a click track, send it to Adam. Adam sends me a drum track back, literally sometimes in 10 minutes, depending on what the tune is.
I like that. I like that ethic.
Yeah, it's really quick, and then once I have a drum track, then it's like going to the playground, right? It's like, ooh, now everything changes, Yeah. And then it's really inspiring to work that way. And I don't have anybody around me. Hey, I think maybe you should do this. It's like, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have those moments anymore.
Well, the stream of consciousness, sometimes your gut, the first thing you come up with, or the first way that you sort of feel a part, doesn't matter which instrument it is usually what ends up on the fucking record.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's really profound. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, that's the thing, is like, I don't second guess.
No,
if the speakers come back at me and I'm just like, fuck yeah, dude, that's it. It's like, this is great. If I do something that's just kind of like, then I'm like, nah, next, right. And I don't have to like fix things,
Do you feel like it can be frustrating if another partner comes up with something and sends it to you? Frustrating for anybody. I should just kind of make that generic. When a part comes into the corral, and let's say there's the two of you who are making the record. It's just been you're the combo, the magic combo, and then the other partner, whatever is uninspired or not, reacts the way like you did, and then you move on. Or is it like, sometimes do you get into a situation where the partner who wrote the part that you're kind of, I'm not feeling it yet, right, let me fuck with it some more, or fuck you, I think it's badass, how do you handle that? I mean, after you work with someone for years and years and years, such as that's normal.
It's totally normal. And throughout the years, Phil and I, we wrote mostly everything, even in the old days. There's a couple songs here and there. Mick Cripps provided a lot of riffs on the early stuff. But when it comes to, this real heady kind of like, hey, I don't write lyrics, and hey, I don't write music kind of thing, and you're trying to match stuff up, Phil would just say, I can't write over jazz. That was like his, songs like Magdalene and Malaria.
Pretty funny.
Stuff that's a little trickier. He would make those comments, when we were young.
Yeah.
But when you fast forward now, it was interesting, right? When we got back together and everything came up roses and it's this new beginning in 2017, and we got the deal, and I sent Phil, a plate full of music. I mean, I had all this shit for 12 years sitting around waiting to turn to LA Guns, right? So he calls me back a couple of days later. He called me on the phone. People don't use the phone, but he called me. He goes, I'm so happy right now. I have nothing to write about. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, it's just, I don't feel anything except I just want to rock out to the music you're sending me. I'm like, well, I work with this guy, Mitch Davis, Phil. Do you mind if I have him take a swing at it? He's like, oh yeah, let me meet this fellow and blah, 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 blah. And that was it. Phil was off the hook from that day. Just like they have such a partnership. So really it's Adam and Mitch and me writing and kind of creating everything. And then of course Ace brings in songs and Johnny brings in songs. And then I take what they give me and then I redo it,
Sure.
awesome, and it's really cool, especially with Johnny, because Johnny really has this youthful approach to writing LA Guns music. Like he really focuses on the energy of the first two records, and so he always brings in a couple songs like that end up on the records, and they've kind of traditionally, except this album, his songs have kind of been the singles, like Cannonball or Rage, which wasn't a single, but it was the first song that we would play live when that record came out. Real fast stuff. But as far as that friction, there isn't any, there isn't, because I very safely record the demo for Adam, then Adam sends me the drums, then I kind of just redo some of the guitars to make it very basic, and then I send that to Mitch, the basic bass, drums, and guitar, without any mellotron, without any, little flowery bits, without any of that stuff. So he can just really concentrate on his melodies. And then once he gets like a rough draft of the lyric and melody, then he'll send me just a vocal track. And then I can start coloring around that, knowing what's going to happen. So the system is amazing. And, I rely so heavily on my brain for what would Eddie Kramer do? What would Jimmy Page do? What would Andy Johns do? What would, to texturize these albums, to make sure that there's dynamics all over the place that, make these albums like a classic rock format.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than kind of going, this record needs to be hard hitting, or this record needs to be soulful, or this record needs to be bluesy. It's kind of goes up and down through the records. It's like, oh, I want to write something like 70s Aerosmith. So I just do, because I know once Phil sings on it, it's going to sound like LA Guns. Yeah. I want to write something like Satyricon. Okay, I can, because Phil's going to sing on it. And it's going to sound like LA Guns.
Right.
So I really have that luxury. And I think LA Guns traditionally has made very confusing albums, and it's great, so I never have to focus on anything.
You mentioned Andy Johns and Eddie Kramer, and you've worked with Andy Johns, and I know that you've produced the last 4 LA Guns records. Do you do that because you enjoy the craft of producing, or is it more of an efficiency thing to keep things moving?
It's both. The craft is amazing, and I did spend a lot of time with Eddie Kramer at one point in my life, when I was like 26 or 27. We had lunch and he was working with LA Guns for a bit. And then, of course, our drummer fired him because who the fuck knows why. So I got, and then, of course, worked with Andy on a few records. but those guys, they have the simplistic approach, to where parts are important. Every part is important. Every change is important. So all killer, no filler, get rid of the stuff that just kind of rambles. And, Eddie Kramer, really good at hitting tape, and Andy Johns is really good at compression. Those two guys really know how to make loud albums. That was the thing that I really loved about talking to them. Well, it should be really loud, and then it should come way down, and then it should be really loud, and then it should come way down. This kind of really black and white mentality, but it's really efficient. It's a lot like early hip hop and hardcore rap, where you would have these huge drums, and some little piece of music that just kind of goes riff bashing, but in a more digital format. Mm-hmm. And that formula just proves, that humans respond to big beats, what I mean? Big rhythms and simple melodies and simple, riffs, or whatever you want to call them, pieces of music. So I always keep that in mind, because I'm a lot like Jason. We like Rush. We like stuff that moves and changes and stuff like that. But for LA Guns, we're not progressive. So I really pick and choose the parts, keep them tight. Make sure everybody can listen to it, because then the problem is, with someone like me, I always have to remind myself that 90% of the people listening to LA Guns aren't musicians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they don't give a shit. They want an exciting guitar solo, in a great song. That's where it ends.
Right.
It's simple.
I think that, especially on the last 4 records, one of the things I've noticed is that it's exactly what you just said. You guys sort of, LA Guns is known as a rock band, and some people would go so far as to box you into an 80s, sleaze metal, hair metal band or whatever. But if you look at the last 4 records, I hear songs like, I loved Let You Down off the last record. I loved Another Season in Hell off The Devil You Know. These are songs that, there's one on the new album called Diamonds. These are songs that that step out of that box or that category. Yeah. But you pull it off. The album still sounds cohesive. And I think it goes back to some of the stuff you were saying about the production qualities. Yeah. And not being afraid to, take some chances as long as it's in the ballpark, but it can go all the way to the all the way to the wall, but as long as it's still
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like I was saying earlier, traditionally, really since Hollywood Vampires, our records have been, you can either call them confusing or diverse. I don't care. But by all means, being a hair metal band is a luxury at this point, because, we're kind of the living proof that a hair metal band can be very musical and very serious and still be a hair metal band. I mean, that's what I love about it. I don't mind the stigma. It's never been an issue for me. Proudly, I would wear lipstick and, stiletto heels, but I'm 57, now I look like a dad, and my girlfriend doesn't want to go out with a guy that looks like a girl. So, so I think that's progress, right?
Yeah.
It's just progress.
It only took 35, 40 years, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Some of us used to dress like the girls we wanted to date.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like
as in the 3 of us. Yeah.
Right. Well, there's a psychosis. I feel a young male with lots of testosterone is thinking like this subconsciously, and they don't know it. I mean, I'm not going to go full on, Silence of the Lambs here. But
why not?
Yeah. Well, I looking in the mirror and say I'd fuck me is kind
that's
of
right.
just, I think that there's something about that. But I don't want to get off track here. I feel like what you're describing to like, to be honest, I already confessed I can't keep up. LA Guns has so many records out now. It's really hard for me. I'm trying to write my own shit, and you guys you guys are just going around. Jason, hurry up! You know, here's LA Guns around my head. I can't. You guys are fast, and the deal is, I've only heard a couple of songs off the new record, but just You Betray. I hear a lot of things.
Yeah.
I keep thinking Led Zeppelin.
Of course.
Yeah, because I feel like that's where this sort of like, why not sound, oh, this is starting to sound like something. Why don't we just like cut our arms off and stop swimming and just let it be what it's trying to be. And I fucking love that about that song. And I can't it's crack.
You know, that song is crack. It's like you put it on once and you're like, wait a minute, let me hear that again. And you turn it up really loud.
Yeah.
And it's the most addictive thing, that fucking song. And so it's unusual how it was written too, because Adam had this drum track he had made. You know, he does a lot of television and stuff like that. So he just wanted to do this big John Bonham kind of thing, but he actually recorded, 3.5 minutes in an arrangement, and he never used it. And he sends me the drum track when we're getting near finishing the album and goes, hey, I have this drum track. Do you think you could do something with it? And he sent it to me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I could do something with this. I could rewrite Immigrant Song, kind of mentality.
Right.
But I mean, truthfully, really, that's what I thought, right when I heard it, because the beat is so similar. It's different, but it's real similar. And I just played that riff. It's kind of like a double Immigrant Song, it's the Immigrant Song is, what is it?
F sharp.
Yeah. Right. And so this drum beat has an extra one of those beats in it. It's not, it's like something else. So the nature was just, that's how similar they are. I mean, it's like double Immigrant, but it's also kind of like the Wanton Song. And then the bridge.
Yeah.
That's like backwards of Shapes of Things by the Yardbirds.
Yeah.
Right?
The staircase.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. So I have this drum track, I write that main riff, and I'm just like, fuck. And the way that I record is I always record with a 60s guitar sound first, like a fuzz pedal through a clean amp. It's just nasty, right? Because I really like that garagey sound. And then I put my guitar sound on later. So once I got past like the 60s version of it and I put my guitar sound on it, then I added a guitar with an octave pedal under it and then a fuzzy bass. It just came to life. It was like, okay, this doesn't sound like the Immigrant Song anymore. Now this sounds massive, just like huge. And at that point, I couldn't stop listening to it. So I was like, fuck it, we're just doing this. I don't give a shit.
Well, it has the octaves like Immigrant Song, or
Yeah.
Or it has that vibe, that's the Zeppelin funk. That's the funk.
Well, I mean, that really invented disco, didn't it? I mean, that's the precursor to disco.
Well, it's definitely funk or soul because it's boogie, right? Well, you guys take it to where that's like this psychedelic thing, and the way that you've layered Phil's vocals are very ambient and sort of backwards delay kind of a feel where like, whoa, what? I can, the wall is in front of my face, but my hand goes right through it. I can't. I can't. Feel
a couple of people have mentioned, and even when the song was mixed and turned in, a couple of people weren't prepared for that vocal recording, right? And some people think it's a mistake, like, hey, you guys did this weird thing in the vocal. It's like, yeah, we did, I mean, but that's what the song, it needed that. When the vocal was dry, it just wasn't spooky enough, you know?
Isn't it good? That's a good word. I like that word, spooky. Isn't it the first song on the record?
Yes.
It is.
Well, then people are just going to be like, hey, this is defective, or they're going to go, God damn, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
The thing is there's it might be just where he's kind of shouty sounding on You Betray, where it's dry. Am I right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it does bounce back.
That's the difference between the ghosty kind of vocal and the swirly vocal, or the like, how big is this room? I can't tell how big this room is, right? To the like, he's going, you betray, where Phil's voice is sitting right on your face.
Oh, he's just screaming at you, man.
Yeah. But it sounds completely dry. And so when that came out of the speakers, I was like, oh shit. Like that was almost like punk rock, or like for a second it went to like, I don't know, like a New York Dolls album where there's almost no reverb on his voice at all, or something weird like that. For just that second, as the bus is whizzing by your face. And I like the production, and I like how ballsy you guys are on trying new shit, because that, you know, I won't speak for myself because I like trying new stuff, but I know I'm going to sound kind of contradictory, but it can be scary to try something so different. But I guess where you and LA Guns are concerned, at this point, you really have nothing to lose, and it's admirable.
Yeah, I think the rule of thumb is always, you know, do you like it? You know, do I like it? You know, does this get me excited? And that's all that matters. I mean, I really make records for me. You know, it's like, you know, all my favorite bands are gone, you know, so it's like, I just write what I want to hear.
Yeah. I was going to say, you know, You Betray obviously has a Zeppelin influence, but man, Gonna Lose, I mean, that's a huge Zeppelin sounding record or song, and not just the guitar. Like Phil's voice on that song is Robert Plant to a T.
It's crazy. It's great. Like we, you know, I'm kind of snarky when it comes to Zeppelin.
By the way, he's singing his ass off on this record.
Unbelievable.
I'm hearing tones and voices I don't recall Phil sounding like that. You know, in the past.
No, you're right. You know, he keeps developing. He keeps practicing. You know, him and I are very interested in making music. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, you know, he when he comes up with new things, you know, I'm the first to know. He's like, oh man, check this out. You know, because the last record, he recorded all the vocals himself with the direction of Mitch, because we were in a lockdown. Mm-hmm. So he had built a vocal booth at his house, and it was left up to him. During that period, being alone recording, he developed so many techniques and things, you know, on his own, because no one was giving him guidance on a second by second basis. You know, he would have hours by himself before he would like show something to Mitch or show something to me. And yeah, man, Phil is, you know, I couldn't do LA Guns. You know, we're not LA Guns without his presence. You know,
I agree. Yeah. And I also agree that, and I just raise the flag a second time here, by yourself recording your own emotional value, adding your own emotional value to an original song by yourself, producing your own vocal. I cut all my vocals in this room 6 feet from where I sit.
Nice.
I've learned so much about and can sing in voices that I didn't know I had.
Yeah, of course.
As well as learning how to preserve my voice. Like, whoa, I shouldn't record that if I'm not going to be able to do it live.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sort of mental exercise as well as physical discovery. Not masturbation, but physical discovery within your instrument, learning so much about when you're recording by yourself. So I'm really happy that Phil however long ago he got into it, I'm glad that he finally did, because that's when you're really going to learn a lot about what your voice can do.
Well, he has some experience because when he wasn't in LA Guns years ago, he was working at Fox Sports audio library, and he was an engineer. He was an editor.
Oh, and he mentioned that in our interview. He mentioned that.
So, so he wasn't completely in the dark about recording and editing and digital. So at this point in our career, it's a lot more fun and a lot more productive and very addictive. And we're just, I feel like each record we're getting a little bit better at it too, which makes it fun, you know? Yeah. And that's down to Adam as well. Adam's getting a little bit better on each record of what his input. And I mean, the drum sound on the next two records coming out, this one and that Todd Kearns record, are like David was saying, I'm Gonna Lose. That track is insane. It's Phil's voice and the riff and Adam's drums. Adam's like the MVP on the whole record. I mean, he does shit that if I could play drums, would be the top, like, whoa, wow. If I could play drums, that's exactly what I would do, So, and I think that's why the record's really addictive, because he found this soul groove throughout this record that makes it move. And there's a lot of variety. There's some like real glammy kind of 70s stuff on there. Then there's the real heavy stuff, the real Zeppy stuff. And then there's kind of like the one you said, Diamonds, which is all over the place, So it's, the bottom line is, as long as it's fun, then we're going to be quick.
Well, you're not afraid. You're not afraid to experiment, and it also sounds like you and Adam, especially, but of course Phil, having this musical conversation that seems new. Like you finally learned how to speak French or something weird. You guys are like finally, and you're having so much fun hanging out in France that you all want to move there. Until you reach the gates of Valhalla, or some shit. You guys have this like.
Yeah. No, I'm at the gates of Valhalla.
Yeah, you are.
Denmark.
Yeah, you are. I was trying to make another Zeppelin thing.
You did. That was very successful. Valhalla, I'm coming. Every time I fly into fucking Copenhagen airport, it's like, Valhalla, I'm coming.
And you're in the city that spawned Merciful Fate, so bless you.
Yeah. And it's funny because in Denmark, Danes are very proud of Denmark, and they're not competitive, right? They're not a competitive people, and they're so proud of bands like King Diamond and Disney After Dark, DAD.
Yeah.
I'm email friends with Jesper Binzer. What a cool guy, man.
I love DAD, man. What a songwriter. What a songwriter. Holy
incredible. And the production again. So Denmark actually pretty much invented tape recorders and high quality production. And that's the crazy thing about it over there. All my friends that are in bands and, make recordings, I've never heard a bad Danish recording ever. Wow. Like those motherfuckers know exactly what they're doing. And everybody's music education is complete and free. So if you decide to be a musician, well, you're going to go to music school, conservatory, and you're going to know music. So
the country supports the arts, no question.
Big time. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you play in a public venue, you get $279. That's the union bottom.
Wow.
So it's like everybody on stage gets $279.
So you can be a professional musician just by playing a gig every night.
That's right.
You could play a gig at this pub and that pub and down the street and sit in with turn in your union card, whatever, and your you've got a bank account.
That's it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same in Australia, because Orianthi, she's been playing down there since she was like 14. And she was in 3 cover bands. And she got that kind of, union wages starting at that age. And she was buying, amplifiers. And so she lived at home, obviously, but she was making bucks, and she knew, she's smart. And a lot of people in Denmark, same thing. So it's like, if you playing in Australia, you're going to get paid. If you're playing in most parts of Scandinavia, you're getting paid,
well, no wonder there's this army of badass musicians from both of those scenes. No.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at Dragon, Helicopters, Backyard Babies, Turbo Negro, King Diamond, Satyricon, DAD, I mean, these bands, they're able to thrive because they don't have any resistance. They're not worried about, oh man, I can't spend 10 grand on gear to put it in a $500 car to go to a $50 gig. It's the opposite. It's like, if I do 10 gigs, then I can buy the amps that I really want and the guitars that I really want. And,
or build the studio that I need to make records and record all my friends' records, which in turn creates jobs for everybody else. And that's how it's supposed to work. Ironically, King Diamond lives in Texas. So that makes sense. His time of I'm just using the number you gave, $279 per show. He left that behind. He's an older gent. He's got it going on. I love the King. But the point you're making is that's a beautiful, beautiful world. Again, one more point. Much like LA Guns, DAD has like 2,000 albums out.
Yeah.
A lot of records out, man. I can't keep up with them either.
Yeah, but in Scandinavia, they headline huge festivals.
I've seen video.
They're big over there.
Yeah.
They're like the Danish Aerosmith. You know what I mean? And that's why Mike Tramp keeps going back, because he has that, we call it a safety net over there, right? A safety net. So it's like Mike can go over there, throw a solo band together, and just make bank.
Wow.
It's great. And that's not based on White Line. That's based on other things he's done there. He was in this band called Mabel in the late 70s that won Eurovision. Wow. And they were kind of like a Bay City Rollers kind of thing. And so like I know a lot about Danish culture, but Mike Tramp is a big part of rock music in Denmark, way aside from White Lion.
Yeah, it doesn't even sound, it's only related by name and not even by what you're talking about. Wow.
Exactly.
A lot of what you're describing is interesting, because I don't know that a lot of American audiences understand that. One of my favorite bands is the Michael Monroe Band. And I feel like the Michael Monroe Band and LA Guns have been the two most consistent rock bands in the past 5 to 8 years, whatever it's been, maybe 10 in the case of Michael Monroe.
I would agree with that.
And like LA Guns, Michael Monroe's band does, they take chances with the music. They'll add strings, they'll, blow some harp, whatever, slow song, fast song, punk rock song. But he can't tour America because it makes no financial sense whatsoever, because he'll spend money to be here. And so as much as I want to see him, I don't blame him one bit for not coming here. And what you're describing is a very lucrative marketplace overseas.
Well, everything over there is based on a living wage, right? There's no minimum wage. So like if you're a teenager and you're working at McDonald's in Aarhus, that's the city that I live in over there. Your hourly wage is about $27 an hour, and they take 40% of that, for the government, which makes sure that the country is, there's not many homeless. People go to the doctor for free. People go to school for free. Mm-hmm. Your streets don't have bumps in it, all these kinds of things. So,
they infrastructure.
Yeah. So the infrastructure is amazing. The people that are going to college, out of high school, wherever they're working, their salaries are based upon their living situation. It's like, oh, rent's $1,200 a month. Okay, well then you're going to make, you're going to take home about $2,800 a month after taxes. So they just haven't figured out, and so if you're a musician, doesn't matter what you are. Let's say you're a sculptor. Let's say you're a plumber. Let's say you're a doctor, all these things. You can work in the public sector and make the right amount of money. There's not a lot of competition. A public doctor might make, 120 grand a year, but the janitor makes 90 grand a year. It's not that far off.
Right.
But you're also, get this is pretty cool. Let's say you want to go private, right? You can start your own private business. And what's kind of great about it is if you're going to do a private business, the government will help you to start your business. And once the income comes in based on taxes, then you're completely private once you've paid them back. So there's a lot of support for people's interests and what they want to do, what their passion is. And there's a lot of journalists in Denmark, a lot of photojournalists, editors, translators, so many. Really high quality.
What I love about that is that's helping the art. That's like sprinkling. That's like making the any kind of create something from nothing. Art fluff up, be shocking all the time because of the journalists and the photojournalists, and any like fallback from that. Amazing.
So I need to move, is what we're saying.
Yeah,
see, that's the hard part. But in the case of like you're saying, like with Mike Monroe not coming over here, and like Turbo Negro is a great example because they do come over here, but they only do 4 shows, right? They do Chicago, LA, Austin, I think, and somewhere else, maybe New York. And I was talking to Tom, the bass player, years ago about it. He goes, yeah, it just doesn't make sense for us to tour over there. He goes, we can get big bucks in these 4 places. We go, we get the money, we go back.
Right.
And it's like, I know Rose Tattoo, which is in a similar situation because they're Australian. Mm-hmm. I think they're finally coming here now, but they've been trying to get over here for a long time.
Yeah. Over 20 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's tough. It's hard to do it here, man. It really is.
Yeah. They're on the Monsters cruise.
Right. I just fingers crossed.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know how much time we have with you today, Tracii, but I feel like we barely touched on the new record.
We got time.
Okay. I wanted to ask, you mentioned something earlier. First of all, for my money, you're one of the great guitar heroes of the 1980s and beyond. I know people like to lump things into convenient boxes, but every time I hear
credit, Tracii.
Every time I hear a discussion about guitar heroes from the 80s, I always hear George Lynch and Warren DeMartini, and that's all fine and good. But for my money, you're my guy. So, and I know you're a Randy Rhoads guy and an Eddie Van Halen guy. So my question is, when you're in the studio, how many takes do you do of a solo? Are you a guy that seeks perfection, or do you value spontaneity and finally say after maybe 5 takes, I'm just going to pick the best one. Otherwise I'm going to, over-examine this thing to death?
It really depends on the song, doesn't it? And, when we talk about 80s guitar heroes, I think that Warren and George really define the sound, you know what I mean? Like that sound, right? Whatever that sound is, it's a sound. And it's a great sound, So for me, like I'm just the best me, right? Like most of my shit comes from the 60s, sounds like the 70s, recorded like modern, right? So it's an evolution. Underrated is a strange thing to say from somebody that loves me, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he got you, Dave. He got you.
He got me.
So I don't think I'm underrated. I think that we have our fan base based on a lot of psychological factors, and but yeah, I don't. feel underrated. Sometimes it's a little embarrassing, to be honest. It's like, yeah, I know I can play a pentatonic scale. You know what I mean? I mean,
I guess my point was just that when people have the conversation that your name is not mentioned in the same breath, and I think that's criminal, because I think you're one of the best. And I think what I like, going back to your point, I think George and DeMartini sort of, I view them now. I'm not a guitar player. I'm just a listener, but to me, they're more rooted in the technicalities of it all. And you, I feel like you're more of a bluesy, a little bit more punk rock. There's something darker and sleazier about your style of playing that I appreciate maybe more than the sterile noodly stuff,
Right. And I don't think, I mean, I'm a guitar player, right? So I know, George and Warren are very Siamese twins, like there's back then, they really were doing something cool. And what really defines them is their sound. Their sound is consistent. They don't fuck around. It's like I sound like George. I sound like, Warren. Where someone like me, sometimes I sound like Carl Perkins. You know what I mean? Sometimes I sound like Johnny Thunder. Sometimes I sound like Randy. Sometimes I sound, I used all my influences.
Perfect. Yeah.
Instead of focusing on this is my thing. I don't really care so much about it. And I know what you mean in the conversation, but then there's always the asshole in the corner of the room. Tracii Guns, man, you guys are idiots. You know what I mean? So those are my people, right? The guys in the corner, they're like, you know what the fuck you're talking about, and I'm good with that. I like those guys.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the work you did on the Randy Rhoads documentary. I heard, I think I read somewhere that Slash was the first guy that told you Randy Rhoads is going to be your new favorite guitar player.
That's right.
Is that right?
Hold on.
So Slash turns you on to Randy Rhoads. Tell me about how that went, and then tell me about the first time you got to see Randy perform because of that recommendation, and then segue into your recent narration of the documentary.
All right. I never saw Randy play, which sucks.
Me neither.
Totally sucks. So
me neither.
I'm waiting outside electronic shop class in... It was either 7th or 8th grade. I guess it was 10th grade. And Slash comes right up to me. It's, 8 in the morning or whatever. And he's like, hey, man. I'm like, what? I saw fucking Ozzy last night at the Forum. And this guy, Randy Rhoads, that's going to be your new favorite guitar player. He played like this, like you, instead of like this, whatever. That's my best, 16-year-old Slash voice. Sorry.
That's pretty good.
and I'm like, oh, yeah, really? Oh, cool, man. And I just thought he was tricking me because he was a prankster. Mm-hmm. And so, but he was serious. He goes, yeah, you met, the guy on the Starwood, the picture, the blonde hair guy on the Starwood. I'm like, oh, yeah, Quiet Riot guy. And I'm like, and Ozzy played by himself? And he goes, yeah, he has a solo career. And I didn't even know what a solo career was then. I'm like, oh, so it wasn't Black Sabbath? That was kind of my thing. So I go surfing with my dad that weekend, and Crazy Train came on the radio, and I knew immediately. I knew that was who Slash was talking about. Mm-hmm. And I became obsessed. He was right. Like holy shit, this guy, wow. I never heard anything like it. And I was such an Eddie Van Halen fan. And this was so different. A lot of people compare him to Eddie, but he's not. Randy was like this.
I don't hear it. Yeah, I don't hear it.
Yeah, I don't hear it either. It was really more of this Mick Ronson kind of mixed with Gary Moore, and then that live sound and the studio sound, just like, Randy's soul really comes through the guitar. And I just spent my whole life obsessing over him the same way I do over Page. Those two guys, it's just, there's so much mystery in the sound, right? So much mystery there. It's like, what is this? You know,
you think Randy might be a little bit more neoclassical, classical than Eddie?
I don't think so. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you musically what's going on there. Randy wrote from a major scale way of thinking, which it sounds really bizarre because that shit's so dark, right? It's so dark. But within those modes of the major scale, he created that music, which a lot of times it is minor and you know, very, you know, neoclassical sounding.
Yeah, Sabbath is minor and Crazy Train is major until it gets to the F sharp pre-chorus.
That's right.
And when you think about that bass line, beep, 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 that's Joy to the World.
It is.
That's
yes. I mean, you're absolutely right. And, you know, Richie Blackmore did the same shit, you know, in Deep Purple. And it does come across as classical music. Now, the myth about Randy was that he was an accomplished classical player, writer, composer. He was on his way there, but when he was doing the Ozzy stuff, he was not there. He was pure Randy Rhoads in learning mode, stretching his knowledge to the max, you know, and creating atmosphere, which is why he's so fascinating. He's so young. You know, people forget that, no, he wasn't a 35-year-old accomplished musician yet. You know, he was... Right. He was 22 years old. Think about that for a minute, you know, and he gave guitar lessons. He took some lessons from some people at the Musonia, you know, the school, but he wasn't accomplished, you know, he wasn't, you know, which is great. You know, one of the things that Steve Vai always says, you know, when he's giving advice is like you don't need to know music, you know, if you can make happen what you hear in your head, that's all that counts. You know, it's getting to what you hear, getting it here. That's all that matters. So get this. I'm hanging out with Brad Gillis, and you know, he always brings up all kinds of great stories, and you know, he's such a fun guy to hang around with. But I asked the question, I'm like, okay, dude, you know, you had 4 days to learn all the Randy stuff, you know, so, you know, like, how did you know about like the diminished scales and, you know, all this stuff? And he just told me flat out, he goes, you know what? I really don't know much about music or how scales work or anything like that. He goes, I just picked it out by ear. I go, like, you picked that out by ear? You know, like, I can't do that. I've never been able to. I mean, wow. You know, I was 14 years old and I was still playing Heartbreaker like this. What was I doing? I remember Slash laughing at me. I was like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because that's just what it sounded like in my head for some reason.
You were playing it percussively as much as a guesstimation. Yeah.
Right. Always, you know, so like even when I was learning Randy or learning Page or Hendrix, you know, it's always my interpretation. You know, I don't have that ear that can pick out things exactly, you know, like that. And then I'm much better now because I do have a very big musical education now. So I know better, like, oh, wait a minute, you can't do that. That's not right. You know, which helps. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's all a mystery. And, you know, guys like Vai, who has this, he hears all the music in his head and composes it, then plays it. Like, that fascinates me. Brad Gillis learning a whole Ozzy set without having any knowledge of music, that fascinates me. You know, I mean, there's just wizards all over the place.
Yeah.
These guys, wizards.
When I was a kid, if I may interrupt, I apologize, fellas, but when I was a kid and discovering my new favorite bands over and over and over, I thought they were magicians because my goal quickly became, I want to learn how they're doing that. So it was a lot of, you know, needle jumping around the record with a bass in my hand. I didn't even know how to tune the fucking thing.
Right.
So it's just that this big fat string sounds low and I hear and feel a low note, but I don't know what that is. I'm like 10 or 11 years old going, well, I don't know what that, I'm just going by what this guitar feels like in my hand and what I'm hearing. And so I would just find the lowest note on which is the big fat one right here.
Yeah.
And I would tune it to the lowest note I'm hearing come out of the speaker. Okay. And I'd move around. And that's how I taught myself how to phonetically play along with all my records. And I got the moontan that you see today from being inside, not outside, learning how to play my Kiss, my Priest, my AC/DC, and it goes Elton John, Queen, whatever it was I was listening to. All record after record after record. My summers, that's what my summers were. And so
you're a blues man, right? I mean, you're a blues man. That's every blues guitar player, from the late 20s on. That's exactly what they did. They're like, we have no education, we know nothing, but I want to make this sound, and the tunings are all crazy, and the rhythms are all crazy, and everything's all over the place because it's pure feel, it's pure motivation, right? It's like, I want to play, I want to play. I feel a certain kind of energy when I play, so it doesn't matter how you get there, as long as you can satisfy your itch. You know what I mean?
You're learning how to speak with it because you can't speak any other way. So you're learning, you're learning your language that I was talking about it to someone earlier today. If you hear a song, let's say you're not, you just like, boom, birth, you walk out, you're in the world, and all of a sudden you hear a song, that song is either going to be your language that you are, I need to follow the light, right? Or it's going to be something that's easy to fucking ignore because it's not your language. So I feel like this is how you are going to communicate the rest of your life. This is the things you're going to fall in love with every time you hear it. You know, the 500 millionth time you've heard Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath, you're going to go, oh my God. You
every time.
Let's say you don't hear it for 25 years and all of a sudden it comes on. You know every word. You can air drum to it. You can, because even though you hadn't, it's like time stands still when it comes to something that speaks your language.
It absolutely does. And that's the same with all our senses.
Yeah.
It's interesting that it's interesting what you said about getting what's in your head out onto the fretboard or whatever your instrument of choice might be. I interviewed Eddie Van Halen one time, and he said almost verbatim, almost quoted what you just said. He said, really? If I can't, all I'm trying to do is get what's in my head out on the fretboard. And I thought it was really interesting coming from a guy that's as, celebrated and technical as he is, of course, that it was all still boiled down to like gut instinct.
Yeah, that the funny thing about that word technical is almost insulting to guitarists because there are insane technical players, right? Guys that go from mode to mode to mode to mode to mode to mode, sweeping through these things that are very technical, meaning that they're very athletic and very practiced and very disciplined and these kind of things, which maybe Vi can almost be in that category, but not really, because it's all about here, right? Mm-hmm. So Vi's there. And when you like Django Reinhardt, man, this motherfucker with 2 fucking fingers flying all over the fretboard. It's like, people say he's the most technical jazz player of all time. That's bullshit, man. The guy fucking was amazing, unique, rogue artist that wanted to do drugs and have sex and spend all his money on his friends and just be a cool dude, And I've always associated with the guitar or any instrument as more of that. It's like, it should enhance your personality, what I mean? And, it's been said that, you can really tell how somebody has sex by the way they play their instrument, So like, I watch Instagram a lot, I'm just like, damn, oh, wow, geez, really? Because someone planted that in my head a long time ago. So just, it's a lot cooler to be cool than to be great.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. The word technical almost implies that you're diminishing the heart and the feel.
Right.
It's like it's too studied and mechanical versus
I was waiting for
let's look at Eddie Van Halen really quick for an example of technical. If he was technical, that means he'd be playing in the box. That means he'd be playing what's laid out there, you know, in your minor scales and your major scales, and like, oh yeah, it's correct. Eddie did anything but correct. You know what I mean? He did Eddie correct. You know, it's like whoa, dude, like wow. I mean, sometimes his shit is so fucking gnarly, especially with a guy with an ear like mine who can't really figure other people's stuff out. I don't know what planet that guy came from sometimes. It's like, whoa, you know, like it's anything but technical, really.
Yeah.
And then look at Tom Morello, right? Like the guy is just a fearless, you know, soundscape guy without doing overdubs. You know what I mean? Like he wants to do it here now. You know, he wants to make sound and noise and UFOs and little guitar solos and big rhythms. And, you know, it's really the uniqueness of the brain that makes a hero. You know, it's what they're doing. It's like, you know, Page's thing was taking something blatantly from somebody else, but making it so much more palatable, you know, making it so much more exciting or defining something else, you know, and he gets a lot of shit for stealing, but you know, really, there's only 7 notes, man. You know, I mean, come on. You know, no, you know, all the people that are mad at Jimmy Page because he stole well, then put your Zeppelin records away. I dare you. You know, I fucking dare you to just make a mixtape of all the original versions of those songs from the original artists. I guarantee you won't listen to that mixtape very long.
Well, the Beatles stole as well. So
they did, and they came from a fascinating point of view. I was listening to Paul McCartney talk about that, and like from his point, you know, the Brits at that age had grown up with families that got together on weekends and had traditional, you know, music time, you know, playing within the family, right? You know, a lot of Christmas songs, let's call them.
Sure.
So for me and the Beatles, knowing that, you know, I can really identify, you know, these like D7, it's like the Christmas chord, you know, and they use it a lot in Beatles music. And those arrangements are very old world traditional arranging. And then you have George Martin, who's just like, you know, brilliant master of arrangement and strings and, you know, the quirky instrument kind of thing like that, yeah, I mean, you know, it's like, okay, listen to, you know, any Christmas song, then listen to the Beatles version that kind of took it from. You're going to listen to the Beatles song a million times more than you're going to listen to the original fucking traditional song. Yeah. So that's really what I feel that, you know, making progress in music is not being scared of all your influences and using all your influences rather than, you know, making the statement of, no, I'm unique. I mean, because if like electric guitar player walked in, never listened to fucking music and just did his own thing, none of us could relate to it. Nobody could relate to it because it's not familiar.
Yeah.
You know, that's, and the bottom line is we're all trying to sell records, right? So, you know, I'm not going to lie to myself and be like, oh man, I got to be this fucking, you know, rogue guy and I'm going to fucking play dissonant and I'm going to do all this weird shit, because it's like, no, I want people to like my songs, man.
Yeah.
Well, you want it to be moving in the right ways without it being, you know, overly something that's not who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey man, it's really whether we're going to tie this up soon or not, I just want to take the time right now to say this has been really awesome just hanging out with you. It's been a long time since I actually got to converse with you and just talk about music with you, so I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah.
Me too, brother.
Just wanted to tell you that, man.
I've got like 3 pages of notes here that we're not going to get to today.
We need to do a part 2 at some point.
I did want to ask you, since we have you today, I want to ask you about your appearance in the Michael Jackson video.
The Beat It video?
Yeah, so you're in the Beat It video, and I watched it again today looking for you. And obviously you're a teenager at that time. So tell me, how did that day, describe that day for me, and then tell me, can we see you in the video? Like, you can
see me.
Who are we looking for when we watch the video?
A little skinny guy with blue jeans, black leather jacket, blonde hair, headband, but not the main dancer. See, the main dancer fits that description. A lot of people think, oh, that's him. It's like, no, because I was an extra dancer. I wasn't a main dancer.
Okay.
So I think I always tell people, you could really see me. A pickup truck pulls up and I run around the truck and get in the truck. Okay. So like that's the, if you need to see me, that's the best chance. It's like because it's like almost 2 seconds long. But no, it was 2 days shoot in downtown LA. And it came through an extra agency. We all used to do extra work on, TV and movies and shit. So I got that, and it was crazy because I kept wondering those 2 days, is Eddie Van Halen going to do the solo? Is Eddie Van Halen going to show up and play the solo? And he never did, But it was cool, man. I made $1,200 too.
Nice. Wow. And of course, at that time, you had no idea that video was going to be so iconic, and that song was going to, live forever. And I just think it's cool that you're a part of that.
Me too.
That's amazing.
Too. That's amazing. It's funny how life leads, because, we can talk about that later.
No, tell me. Go ahead.
I'm a little bit more associated with Michael Jackson right now. Or 1 degree closer.
Oh yeah, yes, your personal life. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you. I did this with Ace Von Johnson when we had him on the show recently, and I wanted to do the same with you. Couple quick questions. I give you a choice. You have to pick one, and no explanation required. So here it goes. Albums: self-titled Van Halen or Blizzard of Oz?
Fuck, that's not fair. But
that's a bullshit question.
That's why I do
that's
it.
A bullshit question, man.
Then you'll hate the next one.
If I answer that, I feel like I'm going to rot in hell. So I'm just not going to. I'm not answering that.
Because hell. Let me introduce you to hell. David's question he just asked you.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, then you'll hate the next one. WASP self-titled or Too Fast for Love?
Oh my God.
I might have.
I guess you know me.
I know you're asking Tracii, but
yeah, I know.
I would lean towards. Well, I know what I would say.
What would you say?
WASP.
Because it's heavier, right?
It's not the same thing. But the cool thing is it's related in some ways, because I love the the kind of like punk thing that's happening on that first Motley.
Yeah,
that WASP record is like if Motorhead went glam, or if Venom or something like learned how to play a little bit better in 1982.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But in my case, when I look at they both influenced me probably equally, but I think the first 2 Motley Crue records are so much more important in my life than the first 2 WASP records. But it's very close, man. I mean, those, especially the first WASP record. Wow. Yeah. I used to hear Axl singing to that in the shower.
Wow.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Like
so wait a minute. You used to hear Axl singing the first WASP record?
Oh yeah.
In the shower, Dave.
In the shower. In the shower. Wow. Like we were into it, man.
That's the best thing I'm going to hear all day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And at the time it was just a no-brainer. It's like, well, yeah, of course he is. But now I think about it like, yeah. Walk down the hall and hear Axl in the shower with WASP on singing along. That was my normal life.
Probably a great warm up.
That was just a regular Tuesday morning, right?
Yeah, really. How weird is that?
Have you ever got to meet Jimmy Page?
No. Oh, yes, but not meet him. He was playing LA with the Firm at the Forum, and my mom went to the Forum, and I was like, no. I'm going to the Rainbow because I know Jimmy Page likes to hang out at the Rainbow. So I was 16 or 17, going to the Rainbow all the time anyways. So I'm sitting in the back table with some friends and, leather jacket, big hair, lipstick, stiletto heels, that part of my life. Sure enough, here comes Jimmy Page. I see him come in near the fireplace with two chicks. Whew, yes. Walking down, I get right up. I walk up to him and I'm like, hey man, you have no idea who I am, but if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be playing guitar. And he just looks right at me and goes, yeah, and walked right by me. That was my meeting with Jimmy Page. What a hero. He's like, yeah.
That's classic.
Well, he had other things on his mind.
Yeah, he sure did.
Yeah, that's not your fault, buddy.
Well, Tracii, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. I've wanted you on the show for 2 years now, and love the last 4 albums you've done now. We're up to 4. I think you guys have been super prolific. You've put out quality stuff. I've seen you every time you've come through Texas on these various tours. Always one of my must be at the show gigs. And I look forward to a tour on the Black Diamonds album. Hopefully.
Yeah, but be careful if we're playing an outdoor venue in summer there, because you might not see. I might be in a bathroom somewhere.
Yeah. So when you play,
don't blame you.
When you came through Texas last time, you did. I guess it was Dallas. You had to do the show you were isolated in a bathroom, and the very next day you were scheduled to play Austin. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's going to be even hotter in Austin. I hope he's going to show up, and I hope he's going to play on stage. And to your credit, you did. I was stoked to see you on stage more so than ever, because 24 hours ago it didn't look good.
Well, I did see a specialist about that since then. And unfortunately, my brain can't regulate heat or, extreme heat and extreme cold. So it's a good chance that, I couldn't survive that at some point.
Wow.
So it's just I got to be really careful.
Yeah, be careful and get. I'm not saying get a doctor's note, but take care of. Listen to what the doctors are saying, because
health first.
They're going in their office and Googling it just like you are.
That'll make you feel better.
But at the same time, the condition, I've heard of the condition before. I have no idea what it's called. You don't need to give us the medical term, but if your brain is not looking at that's as real as epilepsy in my mind. So please be careful. Take care of yourself.
It's I used to think it was a psychological thing, but it's a physical thing, and it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
Well, route your summer dates to indoor venues as much as possible, because I'll tell you, as much as you hate it, so do we out in the audience.
Right.
Out there.
They could roll.
I know. We at that Austin gig, which we figured out some kind of weird contraption. I was watching the crowd, and the crowd was not comfortable.
Yeah. It was 100 degrees that day.
It was brutal, man.
Yeah.
So brutal.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah, you need to come up with like a boy in the bubble type thing, like an air conditioned glass jar. They roll you out and you go, all right, I got my in-ears, I'm fine. I can hear what's going on, with enough room for you to rock around in,
Very Spinal Tap, right?
Yeah, it'd be cool
exactly.
if Phil had one, and it's like if Ace had one. You guys just roll them out. All right, 1, 2, 3.
But you know who I'm really jealous of? Like, we do shows where it's 100 degrees, let's say, and there's Johnny stage right with a leather jacket on.
I know.
For an hour. I'm just like, How the fuck do you do that, man? Like, what?
Well, he's the opposite. He doesn't feel
Anything.
heat or cold or anything. He just feels the power of rock.
That's it. I mean, I'm so jealous of that.
Yeah.
Well, Tracii, thank you for joining us today. Congratulations on a great new album. It's called
Thanks,
Black
buddy.
Diamonds. It comes out April 14th. Look for it. Look for LA Guns on tour in 2023 at some point. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our very special guest today, Tracii Guns on the Talk Louder podcast.
Woohoo!